Action. Hey everyone, Richard Carlton. Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker training. I said that, I'm Richard Carlton. I'm the creator of FMTrain.tv, where every day we're talking about FileMaker. Whether you want us to talk about FileMaker or not, we're talking about FileMaker. And so today is day 2 of 5 days of intensive workups on basically data modeling. So this is the current schedule right here. So today is day 2 of data modeling. Really, unless something really super interesting happens, we're gonna this whole conversation is a 2-day exercise. So we're gonna do day 1, day 2, then we're gonna repeat it with different examples tomorrow. I'm gonna do day 1, day 2 again, and then Friday is kind of a open Q&A, or it's really open Q&A all the time. But I really want to hammer this stuff home, and so we're gonna pick up the conversation yesterday. I'll recap on that. If you want to support the channel, if you really like who we are and what we do, incentivize us to keep going and bringing people on this show. Right? Because pretty soon Ken's going to want a cut of the action. I'm going to have to cut him in for, 38% of our proceeds, which today would be 0 so far. So if you want to support the channel, Margaret, you can buy one of our training bundles, which is really awesome. Training bundles are right here. And you can get the basic, plus, or complete bundle. The plus is actually, I didn't think it would be that popular, but it is super popular. And it doesn't contain any copy of FileMaker. So go to FMTrain.tv, hit the bundles button, purchase one of those, help support the channel. All right, so let's talk about today's content. Yesterday on the TV show, we were talking about the whole idea of data modeling, and we were interviewing and talking with Ken here, and I don't have that file in front of me. If someone wants to grab me that file, Margaret, if you want to grab it and post it, I don't have the file in front of me. It's kind of important. So what we're doing is we were interviewing Ken, and Ken had to pretend he was a hostile witness at the courtroom. And I asked Ken, I said, what do you do? What is your business model? And he talks about these events he does with hot air balloons. And then Ken talks about, well, then we have a balloon, then we have a pilot. And then so we keep talking to Ken, and we find out that he has maybe more than one pilot. And then for sure it's always 2, and then maybe 3. And then before long, the customer starts sliding and weaseling on you. And it was a really good example of, you talk to a customer and they have to really understand their business model. And when you build something, you really have to understand the kind of the extreme edges of it. We call edge cases is the terminology we use for that. So what we end up working on, I remember this yesterday, we decided that there was a balloon, and one record in a balloon table would be a unique balloon, as in an inflatable thing that you write on, okay? And then we were discussing whether you'd have models or fields. The fields, these would be the fields here, they would be something else. And then we decided that there would be potentially models, maybe. This is where we were maybe talking about manufacturing it, that kind of thing. This was the manufacturing one right here. Can you remember that? And then we had the continued one, which is this other one. This is the original one about the balloon event, right? So we're talking about nouns. These are balloons. Then we had documents, which are pieces of paper or photographs or digital copies. Then we have pilots. So the whole idea was to kind of try to work through and establish what these items were. And we did that, and no one seemed to have any questions about it yesterday. So the question, Ken suggested that we finish the conversation. It's really what I should have thought of, but I'm really glad that he brought reality to the show and reminded me that once we model it on paper, how do you organize the graph? And you're going to find out this part right here is the hard part for you. And mostly because you have to interrogate the person, and they have to answer the question, and sometimes they don't know all the answers, so you might have to interrogate Ken and then maybe the operations person for the balloon company, and interview 5 or 6 other stakeholders to get a real good idea of what this looks like. So the idea was that we ended up with this. So this is Anchor-Buoy. And what is Anchor-Buoy? Anchor-Buoy is a way of building a relational diagram in the world of FileMaker. It looks like an ERD, but it's not an ERD, entity relationship diagram. So what this is a kind of a combination of an ERD and a view. If you're familiar with SQL, some of you are familiar with SQL, they have these things called views. Really, these are views, okay? And so this is a screenshot of what they are, but it's really simple, right? How we do this. There's rules of the road of how this works. So here's the way this works. And then performance-wise, we did a bunch of testing on it. The short version of the performance is that this design methodology right here is either the fastest design methodology that you can come up with, or it's tied for the fastest with another technique. But it's either the fastest or just plain old the fastest. So the idea is that what we're going to do to build this solution is we have this overview right here. I'm going to bring this back up. And so we're going to build this out. Now, here's the real simple part of this, and I'm going to start from scratch here. This part of it is simple, is that every table that you have, there's probably some sort of data entry screen that's associated with that. And you can think about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a new file that's going to be blank. I'm just going to call it desktop. I'm going to call it Kins balloons, whatever, that's fine. And so once again, now, whenever you define a new table, FileMaker throws these in here. I'm not going to get into why these are good or bad. I generally hate the way they're set up for a wide variety of reasons. I delete them all and I build the ones we want. And it's, once again, it's different opinions of different developers, but I think because I train all of you, I watch where you get stuck. I have a better grasp on what confuses people than most other people in terms of training. So we have the balloons. So what, Ken, you have this over here. You want to help us out? So we had balloons, documents, pilots, documents, and we had sessions, right? Remember this?
Right.
So you're going to help me out here because I'm trying to do this from memory. So I'm going to call this, I'm going to go to, I need to go to table, sorry. Don't save. Okay, I got balloons. Remember this is now when you first create a FileMaker file, it's going to take the FileMaker file and a guess that that's a name of a table, which is not really in this case. What I'm going to do is I'm going to toast call it. These are balloons. These are actually the physical aircraft. Okay. Then we have pilots, which are people. Okay. And notice I created it and it stuck 5 fields in here. So we're going to go back and trim all these out momentarily. Then we had I will call it balloon documents, and these are the paperwork that establishes, like a registration for your car. It's like the balloon registration, some things like that. So I'm just calling balloon documents. I'm going to say create that. I'm going to also have pilot documents. This is like your driver's license, literally like a pilot's license, but a driver's license. I'm recapping this for everyone who
wasn't here yesterday.
Oh, I renamed that one. That's bad. Okay, pilot documents, and then I'll say balloon documents, and I'll just create that. Once again, it's putting the default fields in here, kind of a mess. We don't like those. I'll clean those up. And then last one we had was sessions. And this was the interesting one, right? This is where you said, well, we have all these, a session is when a pilot takes out a balloon and flies it around for a period of time, right? Did you have a better definition for that? Is that about right?
I think that's fine. And okay. Yeah.
So you could say session, or you could call it a flight session. If you're at an if you go to an airport and you're trying to make an airline, you have a flight that's going to depart, and you look on the wall and it has the computer display and it says on time, late, on time, whatever. Gate 5, gate 8. You got to sprint down the airport. Those are all flights. That's what this table is here, only for balloons, right? So flight. I'll just call it sessions because I like sessions, but I'll put the word flight sessions on here because that'll help people kind of wrap their head around that. So I'm going to create this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to these real quick. I'm going to double click. I got all these in here. I'm going to delete all these. I'm going to go to the next one, delete them all. That way we start with a naked database with nothing in it. And someday if we want to talk about why I dislike these fields, but you'll understand that. All right, so here we have the tables right here. So here is the way this works, is that what I'm going to do on each of these real quick is I'm going to define a primary key in each one. Now, there was a primary key in here before that they put in here. They named it funky. Claris named it funky. And they turned on all these options that are confusing to new people and unnecessary in a training environment, or any professional environment, really not necessary. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put ID, and then I'm going to put the word flight, and then I do session. I'm not putting spaces anywhere because there are situations where a space in a field name or a space in a layout, less so in a script, but a space in a script can cause a problem for you. And this is when you do more advanced things. So I'm trying to help everyone be successful for the future. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say, we're going to define that. It'll be an ID field. I'm just going to create it. It's a primary key. You could go over here and put an _P and put that on there so you know it's a primary. But the other way you would know it's a primary is I'm going to go in here and say it's a auto enter a number, and it's just going to start at the number 1 and go from there. Okay. So that is the field I want on there. I really need to do this everywhere here. So I'm going to do it real quick. And then Margaret is going to ask or repeat questions that she has right now.
Someone asked why you made two separate documents tables for balloon documents and pilot documents.
Because they're both documents, but they will be, you could combine them together, I suppose, but then you're going to have to classify them and put a status table in each one, right? That's one of those deals where you could potentially combine them together. It's like if you have a database and you have employees and you have customers, okay? Well, how you handle employees and how you handle customers, the data you need about them is very different. Okay. And so do you really want those, even though they're humans, breathing people, right? Or maybe you're a pet store and your customers are dogs. The dogs walk in, they throw down some cash, they eat some food, they leave. But it's some sort of, generally they're humans.
I was going to say, Richard, I would think the relationship would be simpler this way with two separate documents for balloons and a separate for pilots, because you can just relate a pilot to his documents, where if you put them all together, now you have to relate them to pilot documents, although they would probably relate okay anyway. But I could see simpler having two.
Yeah, I would break them apart, because that way when you're in that table and you're looking at a list view, you know every record is a pilot document and every record in the other one is an airplane document.
Yeah, I think it'd be simpler to see it.
Just from the standpoint of going to a list view and showing it to someone, and they say, well, here's pilot documents, but in here's also mixed some aircraft documents. It's a conversation. It will spawn a conversation, but it's, as they say in the world, it's a free world. You can do what you want. I'm just telling you that that's kind of the way I roll with that. Do you have a question for me?
No, actually, because the question I had is the question that the person asked: why the two different documents instead of having one documents table? But
well, just because I think all the reporting on the back end and the data entry management, like if you go to data entry on it, you're going to see this momentarily here. And if you're mixing records into one table, it's going to complicate your data entry, your interface, because you have to account for that, right?
I think the other thing is when we get to the validation of the documents with dates and expressions and things like that, they're more similar. All with the pilot and and the balloon ones are similar, but they're different from the pilot and balloon ones are different. So the validation stuff, when you get into the more details, gets kind of really messy.
Well, and this gets back to something. Let me finish creating this real quick, and then I'm going to put the serial number on here. Let me talk about something real quick. So here's the deal with this: is that when you define a field, you have we come over here and you have options. Okay, auto enter is a great set of options. That right there, if you use that, imagine me coming to the internet and slapping you in the face. And so imagine the hand coming to the computer and slapping you. Don't use that. Do not use that. This is literally from 1912 or 1986, some shit like that. This is never going to work in a way that's meaningful and useful for you. If you want to validate the data, you need to do it with a script, because this will show a message that you don't like. It won't validate things in a way that's useful for you, that's educational, that helps the user. You think you understand what this does. It will never do. You'll get it going, and then you'll have it turned on, and you'll explain it. Like I say, Ken's my customer. I explain it to Ken, and Ken goes, "Well, I really want a dialogue that says this other stuff on it, because this is kung fu. It's fine. You don't get to really write a good message in here, right? FileMaker is going to throw a message that doesn't make any sense, and you can customize it a little bit, but not really." And so then Ken goes, well, that's not acceptable. I want it to be this and this and this. And so if I use this, I'm going to have to tell the customer, no, they can't have the validation they want. Since that's an unnecessary error in development, if you're a brand new FileMaker person, some of you are brand new to the platform, learn how basic triggers work in terms of when you edit some data on a field and you leave the field, it can run a script that can come back and say, and check to see if it's got the characters it needs or it's correct, and then you can throw a message or do what you want to do in a useful, meaningful way. This is not useful or meaningful. This is why I don't use this validation, so don't use it. Auto enter is great. We use that to auto enter serial numbers. You can auto enter calculation. This is highly valuable, okay? So I'm going to say okay on that. I'm going to pivot forward into the relationship graph. So when you build it up, this is the relationship graph you get. So let's talk about Anchor-Buoy. So this is what we have. This over here is what we're going for, okay? So what you need to understand up front is that these are the anchors. So those of you who don't understand anything about boats, this is an anchor that goes to the bottom, I guess, or this is the buoy, and these are the no, that's the anchor, and these are the buoys here, right? So it's kind of a goofy thing, but I have to turn it. These are all floating on the top of the ocean, and this is down under the water, right? It's just kind of the way they call that. But at the end of the day, the whole point of this is that these where it went here, these boxes here are going to be your anchors, okay? So they're going to be the main item on, let's just leave it on the left. Well, is there a difference between left and right? Just for the time being, we're only doing left. And then, so I'm just going to put these down here like this. So they're already starting to look like this. I can put them, and then anything I need to attach will be over here to the right of that item, okay? So I structure it like that a little bit, right? And now here is the essential part of understanding this, is that you're going to have at a minimum, I guarantee you're going to have a data entry layout for balloons, a data entry layout for pilots, probably a data entry layout for pilot documents, probably, or it could be a list view. Doesn't really matter. Could be a list view. You're going to have a layout for balloon documents, a layout for flight sessions. Here's the deal, is that when you have a layout, that layout will only attach to this item right here, a layout. So here's the deal. These items here are table occurrences. They are attached to the underlying table. A layout is one step above. It attaches to one of these. So a layout attaches to a TO, either one of these over here or this big one here. And these all can be big. They're just kind of scrolled up or down, right? So if I come over here real quick, you'll understand it's big. If I hit the little toggle, it makes it small. So all these could be big, and you can see the fields aside, but for simplicity in education, we say that we roll them up, okay? And there's some matching numbers and things in here, whatever. It doesn't particularly matter, right, at this moment, how we name them, okay? The idea is that your layout only attaches to this, and your pilot's layout only attaches to this. Well, what if you want to attach over here? That's a violation of rule. Don't do that. I'm giving you basic rules. Your layout will only attach to these items. So 5 layouts, at a minimum 5 layouts that attach to 5 TOs, and those 5 TOs attach to 5 tables, okay? Basic. Then you're going to go to then the next step, you say, okay, great, save it. Now you're going to go to the balloons layout, okay? I'm going to go to layout mode. And I have this top navigation here that would be useful if I was on an iOS device, maybe on a list view or something. So I have ID balloon, okay? And so say I start putting a bunch of fields on here. I'm just going to duplicate this a bunch of times. So I'm start putting fields on here. We're organizing. These are like balloon color and the balloon level and the airspace of the balloon. And it's so big and it can hold 28 people and blah, 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 blah. So you're building out this balloon layout, right? And then you go, I need to see the related sessions that this balloon is going to fly in, okay? So you're like, well, I'm on this screen right here, and all these are local fields here. I'm simulating local fields. I'm not defining, I'm simulating local fields. I need to see related data. You're like, sessions in another table. I need to see it here. How do I see it? Normally what you do is you drag a field over here, and you come up here to the related table, and these are all the connected tables here, but there's nothing connected. So we have to work on that. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to go to Command-Shift-D with my left hand. So File, Manage, Database is what I just did with my left hand, okay? And I'm on balloon. So I'm on a layout that talks to this, and this, if you double click, it says it talks to the balloon table. So a table occurrence is different than, it's like a representative. If you have an attorney that represents you, right? These are like, you are the table, and these are the attorneys that represent you. So what I'm going to do is I need to add a connection over here. Now you could say, well, here are the flight sessions. Let's just connect this to this. That's a violation of the rule. No. And you think I'm being petty and childish here. I am, because I don't want you to break the rule. If you follow these rules, your database will be speedy, performant, and won't suck. Okay. And I'm trying to keep the suckage level at a very low level. Okay. Ken, you interrupt me when I say something wrong. Okay.
I'm following right along with you. This is good.
Okay. So notice over here, if I go back over here, that one doesn't connect to that, and that one doesn't connect to that. So once again, if I come over here and I'm just going to put, where are they? These are post-it notes. Here's a little post-it note. And then the post-it note, I'm just going to call this balloon whatever. And it would be like, what we call it, the Anchor-1 or T1 or something like that balloon, right? Something like that. Boom. It always goes to the background. See that? So then this, suddenly you're like, oh. So each of these are going to have their own, and I'd have to relabel them. So never one freak out that I'm not labeling them. I'm just kind of getting this out here. So now you start to see what I'm doing. You're like, aha, Richard, it makes sense. Okay. So what we're going to do now is put that in there, put that one in there. These have to be renamed. So if I double click it, this is going to be T5 and this is flight. Now, what you name in here doesn't mean anything, right? And this would be going to help me out, Ken. What is this going to be? Ken, T4. And what is it? It is
balloon documents.
Yeah, docs. Okay. So I'm going through this. So we got this one here. This is T3. Well, how do you know it's 3 or 2 or 1? I don't care. It could be A, B, C, D, E, whatever. Use Greek Roman numerals. I don't give a but something that is logical and makes sense, at least to you as the developer. Okay.
Yeah, and I've heard that using like the T with a number, that's easier to remember than whatever the rest of the words are you put there.
Yes, because you're going to be looking, because what we're going to do is that everything that connects to it is going to have a T3 in it, right? In fact, I'm going to do that here momentarily. So I'm going to go to, this is wrong. So this is pilots here. T2 pilots, yeah. I'm already thinking about what I want to do next. I haven't finished the first thing. So T2 pilots, then we have T1 balloons. So now does this make sense? So it looks kind of like the thing over here, okay, yes? And so now we have to make the supporting items because we already established momentarily ago we want to connect this, but we don't want to do this. This will make no sense logically, and it will make the database performance go down dramatically. So what you want to do is you're like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Oops, did I just crash FileMaker? I crashed FileMaker. That was awesome. This is where then you would be running on the server and you would not have damaged the database, but since I'm running it locally, the file might be damaged now.
Did you crash it or just quit it? Because I usually just hit quit by accident.
It blew itself sky high, which means that all the work we did is gone. All right, so Margaret, you're going to take questions rapidly while I try to rebuild this at Warp 9 real quick.
Okay.
People have questions here, I'm sure.
Would you consider a documents table for each model of balloon?
If the documents are really, really, really different, does that make sense, right? If they were really, really like pilots and aircraft are really different, and the paperwork that goes behind them is really different, right? So this is also why you should remember, keep in mind that when you hit, as we're making edits here, none of this stuff is saved until you hit OK here, right? And you hit OK, then it saved the file. If it was running on the server, it'd be saved on the server. The client crashes, no one cares because it's running, it's protected on the server. That's why I always use server. In this case with you folks, it's less essential, but what just happened? I'm using a crash file. No bueno. Okay.
Yeah. Next question. RCC seems to always change the default fields in a table. Why do you not change the file default fields.xml?
Because I have to teach you people how to do that, and a lot of you don't even know what XML is. Who asked the question?
Top Cat, one of our regulars.
Yeah.
I've always wondered that too.
Also, keep in mind that I present on about 5 different computers, so I have to go and change 5 different computers.
Yeah.
I'm about 75, 80 miles from where I was yesterday for the show.
We have another question.
Go ahead.
So this is kind of a longer question. It's related to an earlier comment. Sorry, I'm a little behind on the stream. This is related to an earlier comment. I managed to shoot myself in the foot when I first designed my app, when I had a table for my dance school students, one for parents and one for teachers. The issue arose when a parent joined a class and then went on to train as a teacher. In this case, it was better to have a single people table and classify them.
Oh, is that what that's what he's saying on there?
Yeah.
It's interesting because here's the rub. You have to build a layout that supports the parental components of it. And then you're going to have all these other elements on the layout that will make it busy that are the student or teacher or the other side of that conversation, right? And so you have to have this. I mean, they could be in the database twice, and there's nothing wrong with that. And you could even have a connection between the two, so you knew they were in the database twice. But there's a lot of extra work that goes in just sorting them out. I think the grass is always greener on the other side. Sometimes the grass is just greener on the other side of the fence. Like the way I'm doing this here, the reason I'm doing this for you is because the grass is greener here. You will, listen, if you folks build your databases like this over here, you connect all your like this, you are screwed. The performance will go through this die, and the little unhappy Lego person will be you, okay? The reason we don't do things like this and we don't cross connect everything is that for FileMaker to render, so remember the layout talks to the TO talks to the table. For FileMaker to, this is really important right here. For FileMaker to render and display the layout, it has to load the TO and evaluate all the connections. I'm going to say that again. For FileMaker to draw the layout for you, you click a button, you go to the layout. For it to draw the layout, it has to evaluate the TO that it's attached to and all the connections. How many connections do we have here? 6 or 7. If you connect it up here, how many connections do you have? Oh, about 500. Not 500. Say there's probably 100 on that screen though. 70, 80. So instead of 5, it's going to do more than like 10,000% more work and effort.
Well, it's looking at everything, even though it doesn't need it.
It doesn't know what you need. That's the whole point.
Right. Yeah, that's why it's looking at everything in the day 7 example.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't know what you need. And even if it needed to know what you need, it'd have to evaluate it to know what you needed to evaluate in the first place. Okay.
Right.
And so the road to hell is paved with this. I'm trying to get you to understand that you have to, this part right here is cookie cutter. Because what I said, you define the tables, you put the tables in here, you put them in a little yellow thing, and then you're building the layout. Okay, I'm going to hit OK over here. I'm going to save the changes. I'm going to go back to define. So then we're over here building the layout. I'm going to try this again. So we're on this layout. Happens to be a T1. When I do layout names, I change them to L numbers. They don't have to correspond to the T's. The relationship, I use T's or M. On layouts, I use L's. So if I go File, Manage, layouts right here, I can go through quickly, double click, and let me do L on these. And the numbers, and what I'm doing is I'm trying to establish that these are no way related to or connected to that number here only is a unique identifier. It doesn't imply where it belongs on the TO side. I guess you could try to do that over here, but it's something that I never considered essential. Okay. So I've renamed these layouts so they're a different number. We're on the layout over here, and I'm going to go to layout mode. And once again, I'm back to this idea where I'm building a layout. I'm putting some fields here. I got a notes field here. I'm using the same field, but I'm starting to build this out. I'm even going to do a button bar up here that's going to go from, we're going to cut over here. I'm going to say balloons, and then I'm going to go to pilots, and then I'm going to go to flight sessions. Now I don't have to put all of them in here, but what I do up here at the top is I put the high traffic ones in here, right? So if I go real quick to, let me show you a real solution here. Here's Big Valley Aviation. It's the database for these people here. What we've established for them here, we have a menu here. This is like starting point, right? And then if I jump over into like work orders over here, I see these are essential items at the top that I think are important, that they're high, what I consider high traffic areas. It's like the freeway. Everyone uses a freeway. Over here is a complete list of all the roads, whether you like to use them or not. The high traffic ones are here. The lower or less traffic ones are over here. So somewhere you need to have a set of menus where you can get to everything, but the high traffic ones will be the ones that'll be like right in your face, right? Makes sense? Also, when you go there, they'll be the ones across the top of the button bar up here across the top, right? So I just wanted to point that out real quick. I'm going to minimize that. So you're building this out, right? And then you say, I need to see flight session information, okay? So the rub, and so basically this, I mean, if you get what I'm saying at this point and you understand the logical sequence of what we're doing here, you have learned that we had to interrogate the customer or understand the business process. Then we follow the rules I just gave you, right? And so the rule here is that you do not cross-connect this. Let me just finish this last. Oh, see that? It just did it again. So doing a drag and drop, that's a brand new file. doing a drag and drop and into itself and letting go. Mark, can you write this up? We need to submit it to Claris as a El Bugola. No, I'm being dead serious.
I know, dragging.
Because I dragged it and then I did it onto itself and it blew up. I'm going to do this again. So I'm going to go to File, Manage, Database.
I was going to save the layout first.
Yeah.
Let
me escape. So how do you save a layout? Someone who's not Ken.
You go to browse mode.
That's all you do. Yeah. Browse mode. Good. Back to layout mode. Okay. Command Shift D. What I'm going to do is I could take this one and duplicate it. Is normally what I do. Or you can grab a new one over here. Either way. Say, give me a new TO. I want flight sessions. We have flight sessions over here. Okay. Now, you know these have to get connected together, but primary key to primary key is not going to work. So what do? This is typically the primary key will be on the anchor side, and on the buoy side will be the foreign key. Okay. We're not really talking about basic relationship stuff today, but essentially this is an auto enter number. This is an auto enter number. I need to define another field over here. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say ID underscore balloon. And then I'm going to say underscore. And then in my case on the Mac, I can hit the Option key and F as in Foxtrot. And I get this little curly F. Now notice over here, this is an auto enter serial. This won't auto enter anything. Okay. You say, go back to relationships. Now I cross connect the primary key balloon to the foreign key balloon over here. Okay. And this should be over here. This should be probably T1. And then I put an A on there. And so then as you start to add these down the page, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. And when you get to Z and do the next one, I typically just go and do AA on it or something like that. Okay, because if you get one that's over
naming convention, it's
arbitrary. It's just me. It's just me. And we cover that. We have a naming conventions documents in there.
Right. Yeah.
So now we have this in here and you're like, okay, that's awesome. So now what do? I need a status tool area at the top. I need the portal button, which is, I think that one there. And I drag this out. So I want to see all the flight sessions because this guy's flying this balloon like every day, every 5 minutes. We need to make sure we schedule him to get filled up with gas because he can't fly a balloon without like his we use
propane.
Propane. I was gonna say propane. Okay. Or just hot air if you're like me, just full of hot air. Just have a loudmouth guy get in the airplane and talk a lot, and then it flights in the air. All right, so we're on so what we're going to do is we're going to say, get the data from this one related. Notice this T1, T1A. It helps us out. I'm not going to check anything off in here. This is another conversation for a different day, but there we go. Then you'd bring over the fields. We haven't defined any fields. I'm going to say, okay. But then, so you see, then we would have like over here, if you go back to flight sessions on the if I go to sessions, what would be a session? You'd have the date, you'd have the time. I don't use timestamps for humans. Timestamps are good for computers, but humans don't. If I went to these guys, Abe helicopter mechanics, and said timestamp, they'd go, what are you talking about? Okay. They do dates and times. I would say a takeoff spot or a helipad or something like that. The date would be a date field, obviously, for those of you wondering, and I'm just flying through this at 5,000 miles an hour. I would say change that. Okay, this is going to be time. Change that. And so then you have all these other bits of piece in here. And then you might want to have there's going to be a pilot who's going to fly the balloon, right? So remember what a session was from yesterday. A session is a single flight. And unless the balloon takes off on its own, which has happened in many a movie where it's flying around and it's dragging a cow underneath it or some weird shit like that, which I was on the floor laughing so hard about wet my pants. That was that rat race movie. That was funny. I'm going to say the pilot's name. And you're like, I'm going to put that in here for now. But then I know that the session is going to have to connect to the pilot. And so since I'm already here, we know the pilot has a primary key. And so in here would be the pilot's foreign key, right? Because it has to know how to connect the pilot. So I'm going to say ID pilot and then the option F foreign key. I'm going to create that. Of course, it's time. Let me fix that to text. Change. Pilots. Oh, that one's wrong. Fix that one too. All right, so I think I'm about done with this one.
Balloon
I'm
name.
gonna let's save that one. Let's save that one. Just save it
Okay.
for now. We'll come back. There's a reason I'm kind of trying to do. I'm going to save the changes here before I crash. Okay. Browse mode, layout modes. We save the changes. Once again, if you're on the server, it would have pushed the changes as server invisibly. This is down here. I want to see a field. So if I drag a field on here, and the field says, what field would you like? Move that out of the way. I go to my related flight sessions. I have the pilot's name. And I do more? I can just do one at a time. Great label. And it puts the label on top. That's kind of dumb. And then you could come over here, I think, fields. There you go. So you can do a lot of things in FileMaker multiple ways. I drag in a field down this way, and then it asks me to select it. Or you could come over here on the left pane and the fields panel of the left pane, and we're connected to, this is the base table. This is the one, this is a parent, then this is a child. I go to flight sessions here. I could also then grab maybe the takeoff spot and the date and the time, and I can set them, they're set vertically, but I can set them down here to laterally, and then I could put the label above. And so when I drag them over here, it should kind of almost stick them in a useful sort of, I see, pretty good. Almost didn't suck, right? So there we go. So you got that. Now, what happens if it goes off the side? Then it'll render on the first one, and then it won't repeat down on the relationship. So I'm going to come over here like this, go to browse mode. Let me move it out and then move it back in and browse mode. Okay, there it goes. It wasn't actually in the portal, right? That makes sense. So now what I got balloon number one. I need a balloon name over here on this one. I'm sorry. So here is the balloon name up here. We have the Trojan balloon, okay? And Ken already knows what I'm thinking. I'm gonna go there, okay? And then we have a balloon ID. These are other balloon fields right here. I'm just gonna leave them be like that. We have the Trojan balloon. And notice I can't click down here into this at all, okay? I'm gonna go to layout mode. I realize that if I double click the portal, it doesn't really say, allow me to create new records anywhere in here. In order to new records in here, either I have to script it, or I have to go into field definitions, and on the relationship, allow through the relationship. So I go here. We're looking at layout that's here and a portal that's here. You double click this right here, balloon to balloon, right here, allow creation of related records. Feel free to turn these on if you want. If you want to turn on sort, you can do that. If you turn on the delete right here, you're going to call me and whine and complain when someday FileMaker starts eating your dog ate your homework. It'll just trust me on this. Do not check those because they are erratic and unpredictable, and I have the this to prove it. What it does is you think you're going to delete the related data, and you just don't want to delete the related data. Trust me on this, okay? Trust me. And generally, you don't want to delete data out of a table. And if you are deleting data out of a table, you don't want to delete the related data. I mean, some of you will want to do this just because it's like when you have a 5-year-old, hey, don't touch the stove, it's hot. And you turn their back on, they promptly go and they burn their finger on it. I have a couple engineers who will burn their finger 3 times to make sure that you weren't lying to them the first time. And so they are who they are, and I can't help that. It's one of those things. I always thought that if you taught people something and it was in their best interest, they would listen. And a lot of people they have to burn their finger to figure it out. So feel free to do that. So we have that on there. I'm gonna hit OK. Browse mode. Now notice down here, it's showing me this record hasn't been created yet. It's showing me if I want to create a record, I can click in here and I can type some information. It's going to be Fred, the date. I can hit the keyboard shortcut for today is the command or control key and the minus key. There's the date. The time is going to be whatever time. I don't forget that. At slot 5. Okay. So I just put data in this other table. If I go to new window, I can see that I've done that by going to flight sessions. So now there is, now notice there we created some other data fields in here, but it's not on the layout yet. I'm going to get rid of that. And then I'm going to grab these, actually, let me just, grab all the rest right here. How about like that? So it's not in any specific order, but now you can see the rest of it, right? So we created that. So that's how this works. So what happens is that you're like, how do I build the relationship? Build the relationship in flight. It's literally, imagine as it says, you're in an airplane, take off, and you're flying, and the captain says, "This is your captain speaking. We need another two feet of wing on the left side." So you climb out the window while you're flying, and you nail on some more wing. You're going to build a relational diagram as you're flying the plane because you don't know what you're going to need, because what you need is based upon the layout, right? Does that make sense? So you have rules of how you do it. I need to add this on the layout. I need to add this on the layout. Okay. Is that a field that's part of the base table, as part of the balloons table? No, it's information about the pilot's birthday. Okay, well, where did that go and how did that get there? We can have this conversation, right? We got 10 minutes left. I want to make sure I ask a question, but you're going to go to the field definitions. I need that on there. You're not going to connect to here. You're not.
Don't.
Let me just. Okay. That was close. That was close. So the whole idea is that you're going to add to support, you're building the layout that's attached to there, and you're going to add things on here to support what you need to be successful. And so flight sessions is here. Flight session will be here. There'll probably be a flight sessions here. There might probably not be one here or here, right? That's how this works. This part is very specifically scientific. Building this layout, do you have what you need? No, you don't have what you need. Then add it over here, and the next one's going to be T1B. That's it. It's that simple.
And so in that case, T1B could be pilots, and T1C would be like balloon documents coming down the line, right?
Well, would you have the balloons? Would you have the pilot directly connected to balloon? If you think about it, the pilot, you said the pilots change based upon the session.
If we connect them through sessions, right, or do we connect them directly to the balloon?
If you connect it to the balloon, then that pilot is permanently glued to that balloon.
Yes.
Right? So if you have someone who owns the balloon, right? Because pilots frequently don't own the aircraft, right? Ask me how I know that. Most helicopter pilots don't own the aircraft, okay?
Yeah, which is not quite true with balloons.
Yeah, that could be. But if you have 5 people or 8 people are going to fly that balloon over that couple days, do all 8 of those?
Only one's the owner.
Only one's going to be the owner, right? One person or one corporation. Do we have questions? Hopefully this makes sense. So the hard part, what I just gave you are some very concrete rules. Working on the layout. What do you need to support the layout? Add it to that spot on the screen. If you don't know how to add it, ask for help. But don't cross-connect it because cross-connecting it will lead you to this, and it'll lead you to an unhappy status right here.
Which layout is Ken's most basic favored view? So I guess, are you asking which layout you're going to end up on?
Well, when he opens it, probably go to a home screen, probably.
Well, okay. I guess from my use answering that question, I could see me on the sessions because that's going to give me the combination of all the pieces. I don't necessarily need to see a document when I'm looking at things. I'll look at a balloon in their documents. I'll look at a pilot in their documents, but then I really want to look at the full-blown everything coming together. So if there were a pyramid, the sessions for me would be kind of at the top.
Okay, we could always move that, right? So you can grab it. Let me see if I can grab that and move that. No.
I had to figure out how to do this with slides, and it's the dots, but I don't know how to do it in the button.
You're supposed to be able to move that. I guess I could just change it like this. This is kind of the cheesy way of doing it. But I know that you can drag it laterally. I don't know what the keyboard shortcut is. So anyway, they got flight sessions. And if you want to go to the flight session, you say button, action, perform a script or a single step. You can always do single step. Everyone does until they realize they need more than that. Go to layout, and the layout would be the flight session, right? There's that one. You hit OK. And then you got this one. It goes to pilots, which is a different one. Perform single step. Go to layout, pilot. Notice that if you had, you just don't want to, no, you're fine. That's great. Then over here, since we're on balloons, you would say, on this screen right here, this segment here has to be the default active on. When you're here, is you're on the balloon. That's your active one. So if you go to browse mode, see how it's dark like that? Because you're on the balloon one, okay? And then if I click this one, it jumps that layout. There's no nav to bring me back. But this is the basic structure. So interrogate the customer or customers, find out what all the tables are, build the tables, drop the main anchors on the layout. The layouts will be auto-created to support those, layout support goes to that anchor. Then as you build out that layout, you're going to add the things to the table, that TOG, that TOG. So if I go back over here, that's a table occurrence group. You're going to add the things you need to support that layout. So I don't add a bunch of things in here arbitrarily. I add them as I need them. So I don't build this all out at front. This is literally the part you're going to build as you go.
If you have a table with multiple connections established through best practices and you encounter a situation where a new layout requires a few of these connections due to its limited information needs, it raises a strategic decision. Should you create a new table with fewer connections or use the existing one? Question mark.
Oh, I absolutely will use a table with so say that we have like the balloon, and for whatever reason, the balloon's got a lot of data in it. Say like maybe it's like, so Ken is Ken's Hot Air Manufacturing Incorporated, and Ken also runs this event. So Ken has a database in here with a lot of information about this balloon, a lot of tons of connecting information. Then we have this other need. I would absolutely, if I had a layout that didn't need very much, like you had 5 or 10 or items in here all connected, I would create another. I would take this right here. I would go over here to duplicate it, and I would create I might, just for simplicity, I might move it down this way. But what I would do is I already got numbers on it, so it really becomes like a 6, right? So I'm sorry, part of this is up to you. There's no concrete reason, but this one over here would become like a 6, right? It's number 6, but it's the balloon tech details or something, whatever. So say it's got a lot more anchor TOs over there, or one of them has a lot, one of them has fewer, or they're very different. Then if you combine them all together into one, yeah, you save yourself 2 inches by 3 or 4 inches on your screen here. But it's with FileMaker, remember, FileMaker is going to load the layout. It's going to come to this, and it's going to evaluate all the connections, whether you wanted it to be evaluated or not. It's not a negotiation. It's going to do it. So if you want to control what it's going to do, you need to it's like a castle, and this is the moat around the castle. It's not going to go outside that castle. Imagine it it's going to go here, it's going to go to all these, and it's going to go here. And that one connects that one goes down here, this one connects here, comes down here, jumps over here, goes across here. What the hell? That would literally kerchunk and go very slowly. It would be, you hit the beach ball. Even flipping a record be a beach ball, because that's to evaluate the record. Yeah, so absolutely, that whoever had that point was a really great point.
Yeah, that was Shiegel. They said, thank you. I've always thought that, but I wondered what you would think.
No, but you're going to name it appropriately and call it, it's the balloon with this, and then the other one's a balloon with something else. And then you have two different layouts to support those, right? Best performance, right?
Well, my thought here in putting this together is I have this one that takes care of all the documents that we've been talking about, but I'd like to be able to take the same information, put it into what I call a spotter. It only gives me things like the picture and the colors. And so I can put that on a mobile device, quickly search for that color and pop up that information. I don't care and don't want anybody to see any of the document stuff. So this would be the perfect way to do that.
Yeah, if you're doing a mobile screen where a mobile device is not going to have the horsepower, I don't care what anyone says, it's got the same M1 chip in my phone as on my laptop. No, it doesn't. Okay, it doesn't have the horsepower, the megahertz of speed, and everything's optimized for battery. So understand that building a layout and minimizing the items is tuning for performance is going to make your mobile experience much better.
Well, also it's a level of, obviously it's security through obscurity, but it also keeps people away from the other data in there as well without having to get into that other stuff.
Yeah. So it's a lightweight level of security to keep people out. Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty secure on WebDirect and also on Go, but on Pro, if they have any sort of administrative account, yeah, they can get in in here and then cross-connect and get it into here. But if they don't have administrative access, it limits what they can do. So these are all great tips. These are fun. What we're discussing here is the fundamentals. So understanding the tables, which is the hardest nuanced part, understanding the business process, the workflow. What is their workflow, right?
Can you go back to the layout with the button bar on it? Stu says if you click, hold, and drag, you can move the order of the buttons. Click once, and then click and hold.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Stu. So click once to activate, and click, and the second time you click, don't release.
Right.
I used to do this years ago. How often do I restructure buttons? Only for all of you wonderful ladies and gentlemen out there in the internet. All right, folks. Well, it's 2:00, so tomorrow we're going to have to try this again. We're going to do the next 2 days. We're going to do this all over again. We have to find a new victim, right?
Yes, we'll find someone else who needs.
I don't know if I want to do Catherine or not, because Catherine's got kind of an elaborate deal, and I don't know I can get through it in an hour. Tomorrow we want to do the interrogation, right? With a spotlight. Where were you? Sir, where were you? Hands in the air. Where were you on last night at 10 o'clock?
Real quick, you should open your Slack fast, because someone posted a meme. Andy posted a meme in Discord, and I had to immediately save it.
Who gets? Is this from Andy?
This is from Andy.
It's really. Can you guys hear him starting the helicopter at all? Can you hear him starting the helicopter?
No, they can't hear the helicopter.
Move on.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. We appreciate your assistance.
Hey, don't be afraid to step up. This was painless and useful. Thanks, Richard. Thanks, Margaret.
So someone should definitely volunteer.
Yeah, we need a volunteer for tomorrow.
All
right, Margaret, go.
Bye.
Got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir!